We're back,
We're back.
and we're gonna talk today about just something that's kind of close to us, something personal,
Uh huh.
which is preserving the culture and the language
Sure.
in the family, in the next generations. And it's something that I think a lot of families struggle with.
It's a challenge.
But we're going through a fun example of it right now, and how even though I speak Spanish and I'm fluent in Spanish, I was born in California,
Right.
and there are some words that I don't of the Spanish language that I am not familiar with or I didn't learn, and we have our good friend now, or our good friend, for yours for many years,
Yes.
that is sharing.
Manolito.
He's Cuban and he's sharing certain vocabulary that I'm not familiar with. So we have an ongoing joke that he says a word, and I don't have any problem saying I don't know what that means. And so now there's an ongoing joke that but it's a joke, but it's also an example of, look, when language is lost within one generation to the next,
Sure.
in grandchildren or children, some of the culture is also lost.
That's right. I think so.
I think so. At
But
least
but
these
it's
are
interesting because you're saying you're fluent in Spanish,
right.
which you are. But these are words that are more akin to the Cuban uh, country, let's
Right.
say, to the island.
And also maybe a higher level of Spanish.
It is a higher level of Spanish.
So, your typical Spanish class.
Yeah, Castilian kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And it's very interesting, now that you bring that up. The other day I was reading something, and it was regarding some kind of ancient mystery. And the way they described it, they used a colloquial kind of English. And I was able to discern what they were saying because I knew the word in Spanish.
oh,
And it's not a word that I use often. I'm not trying to say I speak high caliber Spanish or anything like that, but it's more Castilian type.
right.
I'll give you a quick example. Um, when I got to the United States for the first time ever, they played a joke on me, and they took me to a restaurant and they said, "Okay, what would you like?" And I said, "I would like a tortilla." So if you go to Europe and you ask for a tortilla, you're gonna get an omelet with chopped onions, bell peppers. And it's gonna be an omelet with that's what a tortilla in Spain is, and also in Cuba, by the way. When we got here, we went and we asked for a tortilla, and they brought me a regular, tortilla, because
A
now
Mexican tortilla.
a Mexican tortilla. We're closer to Mexico
Yeah.
than we are to over there, so that was a different thing right
a
here.
little bit of the culture change.
The culture changes.
Well,
And
what about that time that you had a relative of yours that was telling you, "Hey, say this to, this girl or whatever," and you got in trouble?
right, but I didn't speak English.
Right, and he already spoke some English.
Yeah, he was my cousin. He grew up here, and I didn't. I came from Cuba, and I didn't speak English, so he was telling me to say something that was inappropriate, and I'm blabbing it all over the place, and I got into big, huge trouble in school for that. And I got paddled.
Here,
Yeah.
California.
I've never been. I mean, that was brutal. So yeah, but yeah, keeping. It's important to blend into the country. My dad was always very keen in saying, "Look, we're here in the United States, and for some reason, we were Cuban refugees, and within the community here, we always thought that Castro was gonna fall very quickly. So we thought we'd be able to go back to our countries." Okay? For some reason, my dad thought, he was a newspaper man. He was what's called an engraver, which is a lost art. And he worked with acids in Cuba to bring out the different tonality of colors in the letters and stuff like that. And he ended up here in this country working for the Herald Examiner. But he always thought, look, this is not going to fall. I remember being a kid and he's telling me, we're going to be here for a long time. He had that vision for some reason, you know? And so
he was right.
he was right. And he always told me, you need to blend into this culture. This is our country now. The United States of America is the best country in the world by far. Okay? And he had a keen appreciation for this country because we were wandering all over. The Cubans were scattered throughout the world. Okay? And we were in Spain. And it's my understanding that no other country wanted us. But the United States allowed us to come in. And he was extremely appreciative, and you could not speak bad about the United States in front of my dad. He would, stand up and defend the country. And I think that's very important, even though we're talking about language and culture and how we need to hold on to it because it's part of what we are. There also has to be a side of us that has to say, hey, we need to blend in and assimilate with this culture too and make it maybe a mix of it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know all the answers. I don't know anything. I'm no expert.
No.
This is just my idea, and ideas are like noses, right? Everybody's got one.
Well, we're sharing. To me, culture is very valuable and important.
Well, sure,
and language is a big part of that. I mean, even you can listen to a song in Spanish, and some songs, for example, Joaquin Sabina, who's a Spaniard, is a poet. I mean, I love the guy's music, and I'll listen to some of the words of the lyrics of his songs, and I'm learning because these are words that I don't use, and they're in Spain.
Right. So Joaquin Sabina is a genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's some of these artists that are just absolutely and yeah, he's.
But
actually,
you can't appreciate that, in my opinion, fully if you don't speak the language or understand it fully.
I agree.
You lose something. Translation, many times you lose something, even a saying. But one thing. So we're in that situation now that as I'm the first generation that was born here because you were not born here, but will our next generation, so myself, my siblings, in the next generation, the children, will they be able to preserve the language and some of the culture? And we've seen it in some families that it hasn't been able to continue to the second generation, and in some families it has. So that's why we're bringing it up.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, but I will share, because we were put in Chinese school.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese schools that we went to learn Mandarin, that you guys put us at it, the immigrant parents send their kid to many times to normal school, and then the Chinese immigrant parents send, after normal school, they go to Chinese school.
Normal school, you mean a regular school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a public school, private school, whatever it is.
Right.
They go to the regular, from 8 to 3. You get out of that and you go into Chinese school now, where you learn Mandarin.
Right.
And then after that, you get out and you go to ballet, piano lessons, violin lessons. At least this is what I saw, because I was in the classroom.
Oh, that's exactly the way it is a lot in the Chinese culture and Asians altogether. They have a tremendous discipline, and there's a lot of talks about that. Because I've got friends that are Chinese because I speak some Mandarin, and they tell me, "Oh, it was horrible. I didn't have a moment of rest."
Right.
So some people might say, "Look, you didn't allow your son or daughter to have a childhood." Okay. The people that are complaining about this are tremendous pianists and violinists, and they're
accomplished.
They're accomplished.
Education is,
and not only that, they're also brilliant. And so the friends of mine that are saying this are extremely accomplished
Right.
You know, so there's
But
something
maybe,
to be said about.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that
I,
that is the answer.
right.
I'm looking at that culture that I grew up around, and they do value language a lot because they, the group that I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, were sending, a lot of them were sending their kids to Chinese school. And that's so that they maintain the language. At least that's what my perspective is. But I didn't see it
The
that,
language and the culture.
and the culture.
Because
And
along with that, they have certain fruits that they eat, whether it's Chinese or any other ethnic group.
the foods, yeah.
Yeah, for example, another group of people that I have a lot of admiration for in this particular sense is that the Armenians. The
Also.
Armenians are very steadfast on
Well, they also preserve the
that.
language
Their language.
many times. I mean, we're talking kind of
We are.
generalities.
We are.
Because there are individuals within any of these groups. It's just that we look at it
In general.
in admiration.
And it's very
to,
difficult to talk generalities. But yeah, in admiration to it, there's nothing to talk. They, listen, they keep their language, their culture, the foods they eat. I mean, it's powerful.
Right.
And I'm having challenges every day with my grandkids. I mean, I talk to them in Spanish and they go, huh? You know, I need.
They want to reply in English.
They do.
Sure.
And it's an issue because, you know, they'll lose it.
And that's the thing is we were talking about. Your mom, my grandma, never spoke English.
No, not fluently at all.
No,
No.
very, very minimal.
Very
So if
minimal.
you wanted to communicate with her or your dad,
Oh,
my grandpa, you had to speak Spanish.
correct.
And she would get mad if you didn't speak Spanish.
Oh, yeah, she'd be offended if
Sure.
you were speaking, and she would come out and have no qualm about it.
No. So, la tuya por si acaso.
Yeah, yeah, she would cuss everybody out. You guys are talking.
That's what she would say.
Yeah, yeah. She,
But she would, leave the table angry. But which is that's an insult. Your mom.
oh, let me tell you.
But the she wanted to be part of the conversation. However, I've seen in some situations, the grandchild cannot communicate with the grandparent because of the language barrier.
Okay.
And so how do you think that? Well, with us, for example, we were around our grandparents a lot, and I know you guys would always say, "Hey, speak in Spanish," because they're around.
Right.
And so we kind of, but if we don't use it, we'll lose the language as well.
Well, sure, because I was very proud of the level of Chinese that I had been able to learn, and nothing much. I wasn't fluent by any stretch of the imagination, but I could speak
How
at
many?
a childhood level. I think
1,000 words?
maybe a little
500?
bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. I think that in order to be able to communicate, you have to know something like 1,500 words or something like that. I don't know the answer to that, but I was able to understand and communicate a little bit. Okay, and
Quite a bit, actually.
I would think.
You can understand quite a bit.
Yeah. So, but you lose it a little bit. I don't practice it.
Right.
I make it a point to try to retain as much as I possibly can. I know that because I was in Spain and I was privy to a lot of French people up there, and I took a little bit of French in high school. I could pick up French and stuff like that. So, but that means the individual, in this case me, and also you, is making an effort to retain that.
Yeah.
Okay? Because see, you have made an effort. Out of your other brothers and sisters, you have made an effort, I think, a bigger effort than the rest of your brothers and sisters to retain that kind of vitality in the language, I think. All three of you are fluent, but I see as an individual.
I think also you can like it more, or culturally you can be attracted more to certain things. Like some people are not as interested in certain things, and I've always been interested in the culture for some reason.
I remember you going through Grandpa's old letters
Yeah.
that were mailed to him from Spain way back in the day when we got here. he was tearing him up at one point. Remember, he was
Yeah.
getting rid of stuff, and you said, "No, don't do that." And
Yeah, I was able to salvage some of them
some of them,
because these were,
he was on a tearing spree.
yeah,
You know,
shredding.
cleaning up and you know, I've
But the thing is
done the
that
same thing.
it's because I've always been interested in where do we come from, who, what's the lineage. I've always liked that. What part of Spain? Everybody, a lot of people in Latin America and the United States, you have Spanish descent. Well, what part of Spain specifically? And some people go back, but unfortunately, through the generations, that gets lost. So, for example, it gets lost.
It gets lost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
And along with that, you must be keen to the fact that we are in the United States of America. This is a country that has given us far more. Well, this is your country, but technically I was born in Cuba. But the opportunities that the United States has given me, I would have never been able to have done in Cuba. Okay? And it's because of the freedom that this country offers, even to this day, even though, a lot of things have changed tremendously, actually. But
it's still the land of opportunity, and
I do believe.
yeah.
And we have to fight for these freedoms because I don't think there's another place on earth that we can go hide to. I remember saying, I think it was Ronald Reagan, he was at the late night show with Johnny Carson, and he had been made a reference to talking to some foreigners, not Cubans necessarily, foreigners in general. And they had implanted this idea that, there's no other place to run to. If the United States of America fails, this land of opportunity, this experiment that was done with our forefathers, if this fails, where do we go? Where do we go?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, from Cuba, we escaped Castro and we came here, and there's thousands of tyrants that I can cite you through history where people are escaping all over the place. And, America, the United States.
Yeah, and that's where I think some immigrants, when they come here, they decide we're going to assimilate entirely and not even teach the language to their kids. And whatever the or I've even heard instances where there was discrimination because the kids had an accent, or the kids had or spoke Spanish or something.
On your mother's side, your grandpa, he was discriminated against many moons ago. Your grandpa, when he was a kid, and so those things have an effect on people.
Sure.
Okay?
And the parents probably said, "Let me protect my kids and maybe not teach them Spanish,
right,
so that doesn't happen to them."
Or you were a rebel like your grandpa was, and he would get in fights all over the place because he would not be able to drink water out of a water the same water fountain that other people were drinking and stuff like that. So I wasn't exposed to stuff like that.
Right.
Okay. But I can definitely see how that can cause an issue in people because, even resentment and stuff like that.
Sure. So, and those are some of the challenges as to why maybe some families aren't able to preserve, let's say, the language or the culture, is because instances like that. But in our own situation, that's not happening, and it's still difficult.
Well, I'm trying desperately to maintain it, and it's difficult.
It's difficult.
Yeah, they're well, but it's like we were talking to my property manager the other day. Now with all this stuff with artificial intelligence, and you had a major discussion with him saying, well, wait a minute, is this the right thing to do? And he says, well, the thing is, if I don't teach this to my children, they will be left behind, right? Because everything is going in one particular direction. Now we're talking technology, so I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but what do you do? What do you do? Look where we went today. All those computers and everything else that our friend had laid out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different world, and that's the world we live in,
Right.
actually.
Yeah, you have to have an understanding of technology, and um, you have to. But I think that I do think that you got to make an effort. I think that's what it kind of comes down to individually, and for your own family, and then you individually, as you have to make an effort to want to learn something and preserve something and
Right.
maintain it and keep it alive.
It's correct. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right?
Yeah.
So
It's the only way.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like if you want to, you take kids to learn piano, okay? If the kid doesn't want to learn the piano, he's gonna learn the piano because you're forcing him to do it up to one point. But the minute you stop that energy and that forcefulness, if it's up to them, they'll stop playing and they won't play anymore.
Yeah.
And so, it's up to the individual. But it's a beautiful thing, I believe, to retain some of your cultural heritage and mix it with the beauty that the United States has to offer. And um, it's not perfect, but nothing in this world is.
Right.
Nothing. And
You reminded me of our friend, my big fat Cuban family,
oh, okay.
Marta.
Uh-huh.
That I think she created this to preserve part of her Cuban culture
Okay.
in her children, because I think her husband's Irish.
Okay.
And so all her children are half Irish, half Cuban, I believe.
Okay. Cool.
And so
I like that.
and so she had that challenge of the language and the culture, preserving it, but through food, she was able to get all these recipes, Cuban recipes, and then they feel very attached still to the Cuban culture.
Well, more power to her because the Irish are very proud. Very
Also.
proud people.
Yeah,
Tremendous heritage also.
sure.
I mean, these guys are warriors, okay?
All of these, yeah, it does. I mean, wherever you're from, there's a huge heritage,
Oh,
right?
the Armenians, Anatolia, and all that stuff. Woo!
But
I love it.
But one thing that reminded me of that was that she says that through music, through food,
Right.
and there was, I think, a third one. Through music, you can preserve culture through music,
Yeah, there's three.
through food. I know you say sports is one way to connect everybody.
Well,
but
I think that those three are
yeah,
critical.
I don't remember what the third one is.
Yeah, it's
We'll
probably
ask her.
not sports because
No.
we play baseball. So
Right.
the number one sport in the world is soccer.
Yeah, football.
Yeah, football.
Soccer.
And so you can, and you see it.
Yeah.
You see countries that are really upset with each other. Like the other day, not the other day, but a couple years ago or something, Iran played another country that they don't like them very much, and vice versa. And man, it was a pride thing. I wanna beat Iran. Wanted to beat this country, and this country wanted to beat Iran, and they played rough. They played rough. But at the end of the day,
There's more at stake than just the game.
there's more at
sometimes.
stake than just a game. But at the end of the day, in those two countries, everything stopped.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, if there was a surgeon making an operation, he would try to do it when the game was over.
Yeah.
If it was at all possible, unless it's an emergency, everything stopped. Restaurants closed down unless it was an incredible thing. Everybody was watching. So sports definitely unites people. Look at Messi the other day. He made the final goal. He wasn't feeling well or something like that when he played in Miami.
Okay.
And apparently people were saying, look at this, he's not going to play, and all the tickets shot up now that he's there. And well, he went out there and he proved himself that he is such a true warrior, man. Apparently he wasn't feeling very well and he still scored.
Wow.
And There's a lot to be said about those people. I think Kobe Bryant one time played either half a game or almost a full game with an Achilles tendon busted or something like that. You guys look it up because I don't want to. But
Yeah.
these people, you look at these people and where do they get their strength to
Yeah,
continue?
I mean, just from the outside, I would think that they want to show up for the fans
Yeah.
because it's not money.
No, no
It's
longer.
not a money at that point.
No.
Uh, the love of the game, and so they want the fans have gotten them to this point. Maybe they just want to make sure that they reciprocate. I don't know.
And there's a lot of people that reach a certain point and they want to give back.
Hmm.
And it's extremely important. Arnold Schwarzenegger says that a lot. He says, at some point, he gives like 5 rules of life or something, like never give up, continue, be relentless, all this stuff. And one of the rules is make sure, don't forget to give back. You have to give back. And it's that idea of passing it forward,
Yeah.
and you have to do it. I think that I was born in Cuba, so I will always retain that particular identity for me, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't lose sight of the fact that this is the best country in the world, and I definitely assimilated a lot of the culture and the good things that this country had to offer so that we can continue to move forward and be called Americans and be proud to be Americans.
Yeah.
You don't see any Cubans stepping on the Cuban flag or burning the Cuban flag. There shouldn't be any Americans stepping on the flag. I don't want to get political, but I feel that
You
have
are.
to. You need to have a love for this country.
Yeah, well, that's your perspective
yeah,
as,
my
as an
perspective.
immigrant
Yeah,
coming here, and this land gave you the opportunity to,
right.
and your parents,
Right.
and to do well here. And that's the thing, is that everybody, the beauty of it is that you can do that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You can step on that flag, and you have the ability and the freedom to, even though your opinions may be otherwise. That's the freedom that's here. And you can't do that in Cuba.
You're right. Well, no, if you you
Or-
get shot on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. Or you get
So-
thrown in un calabozo. They will dig a hole, 10 feet deep, and then you'll be there for the rest of your life.
And that
Agonizing.
happened. I mean, a lot of the friends and even family members of ours that were not with what was going on at the time
Oh.
in Cuba, they got rid of you.
That's right.
Um,
They would come
Our-
at 3 in.the morning,
Yeah,
ransack your house, take you, and
yeah.
bye-bye. You
but
never saw them
that
again.
happens in many countries.
In many
unfortunately.
countries. Yeah.
You can't speak out against, and so without getting political.
No, yeah, that's my
because
fault.
it happens in many countries,
But retaining the language and the culture is important.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so, and I think you have to make an effort.
Oh,
But as a kid, you don't know otherwise. You're just going to want to go with maybe what's more comfortable. And at that point, maybe it's the parents and the grandparents who have to make that effort. It's
Right.
easy for me to say because I don't, have any children and, I haven't, I'm not going through that struggle right now. But there are families that have been able to do it. And some of them even send them to Spanish school so they retain the Spanish language. We used for a little bit. Remember, you sent us to the La Escuelita. Argentina.
yeah, Argentina. Yeah, the Argent. Yeah,
So even those
Argentinian
things
school.
you learn, and because if you rely,
and then you learn. I sent you to Argentinian school, and you came back with poems of from Argentina.
yeah,
Which was really cool. What do you call their cowboys?
Gauchos.
Gauchos.
¿Qué te pasa, gaucho?
Yeah. You came back. I
Yeah.
thought that was cool.
Yeah,
I didn't have a problem with that actually at all.
no,
Because you get exposed to
different cultures.
different
too.
cultures, and I think it's important. That's why, sometimes one of the best teachings in the world is traveling.
Sure.
Step out of the United States and go to another place. Doesn't matter where you want to. I mean, I was in the Dominican Republic a lot. I've been all over the place. Puerto Rico, Canada. Europe. So, and you get to see what other people are like and how that country is run and the limitations those countries have. It's impressive to be in the Dominican Republic and you see an 18-year-old kid with a semi-automatic rifle on his shoulders walking the streets, you know? That's the police or the militia over there. And that was a very common sight when I was there. And I remember getting there and thinking, whoa. And then, you know, I was there more than 3 months. Of course, I was there a long time.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it just blends into the canopy of.
But it's a shock at first.
At first, it's a shock.
I remember when I went to Costa Rica, going to a bank, and there was a guy with a machine gun. The security had a machine gun outside.
There you go.
I was like, whoa. And then you
ain't gonna mess with him.
You would see the police, and there was a roadblock or whatever, and they were diverting traffic. They were walking around with machine guns. It wasn't like the police here.
Yeah, they had.
So that was like, whoa, what's going on here? But
they're ready to rumble. By
the
way, Costa Rica doesn't have a military.
No.
It's the only country in the world, I believe, that doesn't.
And I think they've been at peace for, I don't know how many years.
Right.
They can't fight.
They can't fight. They don't.
Peace is the only option. But I don't think that many people. I mean, this is just completely just joking around. But who's gonna rob a bank when the guy outside's holding a machine gun?
I wouldn't. There's no way you're gonna.
It's almost like, you know, we're so used to it like this, especially in LA County and all this stuff. But when I walk into a bank and there's no bulletproof glass, I'm thinking, whoa.
Well, that used to be the case all the time.
I know. But I remember when banks started putting up the glass.
Right. So do I. Well, see, you have lived that.
Yeah, I saw it.
Right. Our kids, our little ones.
Normal is glass.
Glass. There's just no way around it, period. End of discussion.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll make a continued effort, you know.
We have to.
To keep the language strong. And I know for me it's a challenge, but I'm intentional about it, and I listen to a lot of music in Spanish, and because I like it also.
Right.
And
well, it's important to you.
Interviews in Spanish. Yeah, it is
Right.
important to me.
What is the name of that guy that you listen to a lot? He's in Miami now.
Oh, Jaime.
Jaime
Jaime Bailey.
Bailey. Yeah.
I haven't heard him in too long. I haven't heard him
Lately.
recently, but yeah, I like his level. You know, the way that when I say level of Spanish, it's just he's very articulate.
Yes.
The way that he speaks.
Yes.
Not slangy.
Right.
And that's I like that because I learn. So sometimes I'll hear a word, I don't know what that is, and I look it up. And so that's how because I'm curious, and I don't have a problem. See, I will say this. Some people limit themselves,
Of course.
myself included, when you're embarrassed to say, I don't know.
Right.
If I were embarrassed to say, I don't know, to the conversations we've been having with
Manolito. Yeah.
some of these words that, what was one of the words that...
Apogeo.
El apogeo. I heard that word and I said, ¿qué es eso? I don't know what is apogeo. And then you guys explained to me. And then now I know what it means.
What's the another one?
And apogeo means...
It's at its best.
Being like at its best, an area. Let's say we were describing a specific city being in a good standing, in a good presence, right? But yeah. So I think that in order to,
But that's not Spanish language.
well,
That's Cuban language.
well, it's a different. It's still Spanish, but what I was gonna say is that you have to, for some people who are embarrassed or feel bad that they don't speak it fluently, you gotta get over that road bump and just say, you know what, it's okay. And if they laugh at me, they laugh at me because I want to get better.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of friends growing up that would not speak at all. They would be terrified to make a mistake.
To make a mistake.
Yeah,
That's
and that they would be laughed at. And so, yeah, you're right. That is a problem. But you have to overcome that on your own, you know?
Right.
Self-limiting beliefs. We had a podcast on that.
It applies to many things.
It applies to many things. But If I had a message to send to anyone is, yes, it's important to maintain, of course, your language and your culture, because with each passing generation, you're going to lose a little bit of it. So you can make an effort to try to hold on to some of that, which I find to be of extreme value because it's part of my identity. And that's what I'm leaving behind. I'm not going to be here tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow I'll be gone. And so the
Not
only
tomorrow, but
one
whenever,
day,
whenever that time is.
one day
We will all.
we will, yes. So you leave a little bit behind. However, it was always prevalent in my household to be extremely appreciative and grateful for the opportunities that this country gave us
Sure.
and form some kind of a blend,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and treat the culture and the language of this country with tremendous respect.
Right.
I think you win more doing it that way. I think if and it was one of the things, you know,
But when I say preserve culture and language, I'm saying it. You know, I'm not implying don't assimilate.
right,
I'm just saying maintain that while you assimilate.
right. I think that's the key. And you know, I have a lot of friends or acquaintances, especially in the business arena, and a lot of you can, you know, some of them didn't think it was all that important, you know, and that's fine. You have to respect that too, and you know, you just move on, because some of them were of other descent, other than, you know, if you think about it, you know,
Most people,
right.
you know, whether it was their grandpa, their great grandpa,
Somebody came here,
grandma, yeah, somebody, or
Yeah.
themselves.
unless you're native Indian,
Correct.
Yeah.
Native American.
Native American.
And yeah, and some people have that blood. Like one of my good buddies, he has through his mom's side native blood. They think the grandpa is was buried in a reservation and everything.
Oh well.
Yeah. So
You see, now that's beautiful stuff. You need to
Well,
hold on to that.
yeah, that's
with
the-
a sense of pride, I think, because it's who you are,
yeah,
essentially.
and a lot of that history was tried to be, you know, erased. And you know,
Sure.
wherever their culture and their lands were, you know, they were maybe displaced, and so a lot of that was lost, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's why I think if you can hold on to some of where your roots are, it's very valuable. Also, where you come from, I think, is very valuable. Grandma always instilled it in us, and she was very proud to be where she came from.
Mhm.
She was, you know, born in Cuba, in Regla, of Spanish descent. You know, she was very proud of
Right.
her Galician roots and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And and I think there's value in teaching that in the future generations.
I
Because a
agree.
lot of people don't know where they come from. A lot of people don't know where their parents are from. And I think that if you're in that situation, that's okay. But if you're interested, ask them, you know, where were you born and how did you get there? And
Before it's too late.
yeah, how did your grandparents?
Well, our good buddy Ernie, he's extremely proud of his family background.
oh
and-
yeah,
Well,
his Armenian
Armenian
descent.
And I find that very prevalent in that culture, actually.
There's so much value in the history
Oh,
of what has transpired
oh,
in Armenia
Oh.
and all the different over the decades and hundreds of years. And I mean, when you go into that, you realize, see, some of those cultures have been around for centuries, right? We're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and that is pretty cool too.
yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
our lineage, I haven't been able to go that far back.
Right, right. So
Anyways,
it's important. I agree.
cool. Well, thanks for your 2 cents
Oh,
on
no,
that.
thank you for your 2 cents.
All right.
All right.